Where do you want to do? I think we should do like love seat style. Now it's weighted. Like we're gonna fall down there. Yes, yes. Oh yeah, oh yeah. BlimpDAO. It is in the air. Okay. So the genesis of this talk was yesterday, the day before yesterday. I was working on some slides, mostly pictures of blimps. And I saw Trent's rehearsal of his talk. So Trent is the CEO, founder of Holium, which is one of the companies building kind of social software on Urbit. And he introduced this idea of the EMC, which is an emergent mimetic collective.
Yes.
And I was like, man, this guy stole half my talk because it was encapsulated so perfectly what BlimpDAO actually is. Mm-hmm. BlimpDAO is neither a DAO nor about blimps. Right? It's actually an airship EMC in some ways, you know. Yeah. But so I figured it actually make more sense for us to just kind of like rap about this idea of the EMC and how BlimpDAO is an example of an EMC and how the EMC idea relates to BlimpDAO, Urbits, the universe, etc.
Yeah.
Life. So why don't you kind of like introduce the idea of the EMC as you see it, so I don't repeat.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Yeah.
So I had a slide on the presentation yesterday, and on it had, Urbit in the center. It had Milady, it had BlimpDAO, it had a few other, internet social collective things. But really, as we've been building software and we were building DAO sort of focused tooling, and we sort of realized that there's something looser happening on the internet. There's like this emergent phenomenon that's occurred because we're all connected and there's social media that's global, and you can have memes transfer from like Zimbabwe to like Alaska, and people can laugh at the same memes or be like, man, I love blimps. So there's like, the internet's unlocked this new phenomenon, effectively, right? And we've seen it in a few different cases recently in things like the GameStop moment, where it was almost like this like hive was activated through this cybernetic system that is the internet. And we just had this massive impact on, GameStop. We had massive impact. There was like, hedge funds going down. And then, people stepped in and were like, whoa, this is like crazy. Like, Jerome Powell was like, no, we gotta shut this down. We gotta stop this. And the thing that was interesting about all of this is that this is sort of like this raw and unharnessed energy that's just almost explosive. It's like a wildfire that catches fire and spreads across forest. But then you have things like, Urbit and Milady, and these are targeted around a mission, right? So you have the same emergent mimetic energy that, I came to Urbit from a totally different place than, Anthony. Anthony's been around for a while, as well as like a lot of people from Talon. But I'm sort of fresh off the boat, We've been here for like 2 or 3 years. But it was the cultural resonance of the idea that attracted me to Urbit. Yeah. And I think that that's the key to this, is that you're essentially having a decentralization of like the entities that dictate what culture is, right? So if you go back in time, like in the 90s or 80s, or we can go way back, but let's just start there because we were alive around then. Effectively, if you wanted to like influence culture, you had to go through a network, a newspaper, a centralized media system, right? Distribution was expensive. People couldn't really afford satellite trucks and things like that, or satellites to broadcast. So obviously, you had to go through that system. But then the internet came out, and it lowered the cost of distribution to like zero.
Yeah, absolutely right? Changed it. Yeah.
And once that happened, you had blogs come up, you had newspapers appear, like online newspapers. And these sort of started to disrupt this old legacy system, right? And what I think we're in now is this new phase of a similar disruption, but effectively those media institutions from the 90s and 80s, those became the social media companies of today, where the algorithm can suppress or boost any cultural meme. And so once we open it up to the blockchain, a protocol, I refer to it as protocolized memetics, where you just let it flow.
Yeah, and I think all those examples that you give seem very obvious in what we might call the noosphere. Ideas, images, ethereal things, not real things, right? Yeah. And so it seems like there's a certain bias that reality, this physical stuff around us is kind of immune to a certain amount of mimetic, whatever people talk about on the internet. But I think to use the GameStop thing, it's a great example. The perception of things, narratives, memes, et cetera, do have an effect on the real world. And so one thing that I've been thinking about a lot with BlimpDAO and with various other projects, like the Step Engineering project we're working on, is what I refer to as meme-first engineering. And I think this is the first time I'm going to present it to you. Let me know what you think. So I was trying to think about okay, meme-first engineering, good. Who's the villain in my slide of and I refer to it as dongle-first engineering, which is that, I'm a PhD, I made a dongle, I'm gonna go try to jam it in a whole bunch of things, and then maybe I'm gonna jam it in the right things, and then I'm gonna make money.
Yeah.
Right? Which is what people think of as engineering, is making stuff. And not only is that somewhat grotesque, it's also actually a very inefficient way to engineer.
Yeah.
As any designer will tell you, and I am no designer, but I have watched a few YouTube videos about the design process from the 90s, it's that you want to iterate on ideas at the lowest level of fidelity you can to make sure that it actually is the right idea before you go make the dongle, right? And what is the biggest dongle in the world? It's Urbit, it's a new operating system, it's a blimp, extremely large dongle. Sergey Brin has this new blimp company. He sank, I think, $100 million of his own money into it, right? Wow. Did he validate the demand for blimps before he did? No, he just did it, right? Because he thinks that that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I think from the meme-first engineering point of view, absolutely the wrong thing to do. What you should have done is not only look for a meme space, right? Not try to find out what the kids are talking about and, see if do they like blimps? Are blimps cool right now? It's what you actually do, the next level is you make blimps a thing, right? And this is the technology that we have now, is that we, through just the fact that with something like Twitter, we have just this open port into the collective psyche of the world that we can pour memes into, we can pour ideas into, images, narratives, whatever, through Twitter, and there's a zillion Twitters, it doesn't really actually matter what it is. We have this way of jacking right into the collective unconscious and creating the for your dongle, right? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make this gross, it's just and so it's and so what's interesting is that what you add to this, and the reason I like this idea is that creating a meme alone is virtually impossible. It is a collective operation, right? Because it's you don't need to it's just not me, just blimp, 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 blimp. No, it's I have to be blimp, posting blimp, Walt has to be posting blimp, you have to be posting blimp, and we all have to be posting blimp, right? And that creates this movement. And so that's where the collective aspect comes in, I think.
It's effectively for an EMC to work, it has to find something that resonates culturally, right? Yeah. And for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe it's because the airplane seats keep getting smaller, or they are always late. It's I spend so much time in airports, I might as well ride a blimp. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's we understand, there's some cultural emergent sort of feeling behind that of planes aren't that great. Why don't we try something new? Why don't we go for blimps? The Hindenburg was a false flag, guys.
Absolutely.
Seriously.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think, that's a great example, actually, right, of this phenomenon, which is you look around you, you see all this physical stuff, and you think, what happened was there was two ideas, and they faced off, and the best one won. And you think about that in everything, so you kind of have the old Leibniz, we live in the best of all possible worlds idea. And we doubly think that for technology. And if you've worked on Urbit ever, you know that the first thing someone says is like, well, I have a computer. I want to need a computer, you know? It's like, bro, you're already so hexed that you don't understand why your computer is not as good as it could be. You know what I mean? And so with technology, especially physical technology, we think, oh, well, blimps are not used because they're inferior to planes. I saw, when I was whatever on YouTube, I saw the humanity thing, ergo, bang, bang, bang. Yeah. And you look into, I don't want this to turn into a blimp conspiracy thing, but let's be real. It's, a lot of this stuff, and I think that's why it's such an unlock. You're like, and you don't even have to call it a conspiracy. No. It's just that there's people that have ideas versus other ideas, and one gains currency and becomes the common sense.
Right. It might as well be true that the Hindenburg was a false flag, because it was that, whatever the case was, however you interpret that event, it effectively shifted the zeitgeist away from it.
Exactly.
Right? So, calling it a conspiracy is just, a nice way for it to be a little bit more mimetic. And that's like what we're trying to do. But the thing that I find interesting about the internet and how it's shifted this sort of ability to control culture is that, back in the day, you could deploy resources and money, like corporations could pay off news stations or newspapers, donate to certain people, and they could influence culture, right?
Yeah.
But now with the internet and with crypto, effectively we're decentralizing that, quite a bit. Yeah. And I think what's happening now is we're seeing these pockets, emerge in this vacuum, because we sort of have this stuck culture, and everyone kind of feels that the culture is stuck, and it's because it's sort of it's this result of this period of time where, these very hierarchical corporations and systems kind of created the entire world, very rapidly. It was we were just kind of walking around, no electricity, nothing, and then over the course of 100 years, all this stuff happened, and now this is the transition.
Well,
we're decentralizing.
So one thing that I think is interesting is, and it dovetails with the guys were talking about earlier, is that you live in this situation where a lot of institutions have lost the ability to create or to enforce a narrative.
Yeah.
Okay? And so, which is I say that in a value neutral way, because I think there's always a narrative. It doesn't matter, there's no narrative free world, right?
Yeah.
So someone has to do it. Is it gonna be the Department of Defense, or is it gonna be a whole bunch of weirdos on the internet, right? So the thing is that they've lost the ability to do this big narrative, and the people that are gonna assume that don't realize that they have the power that they do yet. Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to a friend here, and we were talking about funding weaponry, the most real kinetic thing on Earth, right? It's you want to talk about hard tech? I'm sorry, but hypersonic missiles is really, that's as hard as it gets, And it's interesting because, and I think about, has anyone here ever heard of the company Anduril? Anduril, yes, okay, something, or maybe SpaceX, okay. SpaceX is a government contractor, okay? SpaceX is essentially Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, but they have an amazing mimetic power in that they don't, whereas Lockheed was why do I have to convince normies on the internet that my stuff's cool? I could just play golf with a senator. It's no, SpaceX is no, when the average person knows the name of the government contractor and the guy who's writing that check, his kid is hey, are you gonna get the SpaceX hypersonic missile to blow this shit? It's that's huge, And I think it's we're living in this time where these new institutions are not gonna be institutions. They're gonna be emergent mimetic collectives that can actually create, cultivate, and propagate a memeplex that will have the power, we're talking about undreamt of power. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Psyops that the Mossad could not dream of. And we can do that. We can do that, and we can do that. We have all the technology that we need.
Yeah.
It's the social aspects of it and the coordination. And that's what I think Urbit is actually the best for. is coordinating your bros, your little mimetic war band, and you're gonna go out there and I'm gonna sell these hypersonic missiles, And that's the kind of thing where, and whatever, or whatever kind of stuffed animals or whatever. But I think that's the thing that and so I think a lot of the stuck in it, and I don't mean to be, scandalous, because it's saying like new art, new music, things that people like as well. And I think that a lot of the stuckness of culture comes from we haven't passed on. Does that make sense?
We're in this transition phase.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And I think Urbit came along like right at this. It came along in was it 2002 when Curtis started?
I believe so. Yeah.
Started it up. But really, like when social media became impactful was in 2012, 2015, and beyond. And so Urbit was, in a weird way, it was like before this transition period in my mind. But what it is it is the sort of archetype of an EMC, an emergent,
exactly,
mimetic collective, in that the memes spread, they continue to spread, and the meme gives the social capital necessary to keep it rolling.
Precisely.
And the thing with it is like, you need social capital when you're in this transition phase, because people on the internet sharing memes, like, they're not getting paid to do that. They're just kind of like doing it because they like it. They get people to laugh and things like that. And so the social capital is actually valuable, now for people. But I think as we sort of harness it and target it into a specific, goal, right? So Urbit did it with sort of having the NFT, having, this whole sort of address space system to effectively say, here's how we can harness all of this. Buy an identity, get on the network, and effectively it's like a membership card, or it's like a sigil, that you wear. It's like the thing that the knights would wear to say, I'm from, this lord or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, that is the thing. It's the emblem.
Well, and that Urbit as an EMC is such a great example, and it's a thing that I've, having been around the project for a long time, talked about quite a bit, which is that people don't devote their lives, their working life, let's say, as I have, to a project because of some kind of technical feature. No one loves tree addressing that much. No one loves knock that much, right? And maybe I love it, but that's not why you devote yourself to it, right? You do it because of the vision, because of the higher order. I don't even want to say values, right? Because you're part of a collective of people that believe.
Yeah.
And I do think it's interesting that, quite the opposite of what people think, where the memetics, et cetera, it's like that's something that's like marketing for real things. You do a real thing and then you market it, It's like, no, because you're never going to do a real thing if you can't get people to believe.
Yeah.
And that includes the people buying your thing, but more importantly, the people contributing to your thing who will stick with it, who will keep going because it's part of their scene, because it's part of who we are. And so I think it's like putting it in that way. And then you brought up a good point, which is that the NFT, what's up, brother? This is Walt Pearce, head of psychological operations / marketing.
For
BlimpDAO.
Yep.
Sorry, just jump in here whenever you feel like it. Is basically, insofar as you're an NFT, that's not creating any value, it's reflecting value that was you shit posting with your bros.
Yeah.
Right? It's just now's the time to cash the check. Does that make sense? Walt, do you disagree with that?
No, I do not. In fact, I was very inspired.
You were supposed to say yes. It's our whole bit. Okay.
I was very inspired by what I was hearing down there. I couldn't contain myself. First off, the Hindenburg. Back in the day, the only people that had the power to make a meme like that, meaning that thing actually exploded on its own and it wasn't a hedge for the oil industry, was the government. Now, any average Joe like me and all the other freaks in here can make memes and can make memes that are powerful enough to make that sort of change. It does not have to be the government. It does not have to be the CIA, which they say didn't exist when the Hindenburg blew up. It probably just had a different name, probably also 3 letters. It's us now. There's no more government involved.
There's no more government.
There's no more government involved. We are the government. Me and all the other average Joes and very strange people that come to this event. So here's the thing about blimps, really. All the time people say, well, you kind of fell off the face of the earth. Like, what are you up to these days, you know? And I say, I shill blimps. I work for BlimpDAO. I'm head of marketing and I'm head of PsyOps. And they say, what is BlimpDAO? I say, we're kind of a community that centers around blimps. and they say, so you guys are going to build a blimp? I say, maybe, but no. You guys are saving up to buy a blimp company? Maybe, but no. You guys are buying helium? These are the wrong questions. If you're asking these questions, you're already behind. And there's room for everybody in the sky, but the first blimp is leaving soon. This is the last panel of Assembly, right?
Exactly.
So like you can take this as a gift a bit. We're letting you in on something early. What is that, a pre-buy?
Yeah, it's a good pre-save.
This is kind of a pre-buy. It's a pre-buy to the skies. The only way out is the only way out is through, and the only way through is up.
Well said. Well said.
I'll give it back to the boys. Go Bills.
That was, I couldn't have said it better myself. I wouldn't have said it better myself. That was very nice. But I mean, I think that's, of course, the funny thing is that BlimpDAO is started as a riff, maybe it even still is a riff, in a shuttle bus in El Salvador. From the last Urban event, we were going from a volcano top to the San Salvador airport, beautiful by the way. And you know, so you have this like 2.5 hour windy road through the mountains, and we're there, we're a little punchy, we're a little hungover, we're a little tired, riffing blimp, 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 blimp. It's just fun to say, blimp, blimp, blimp. Blump? No, not blimp. Actually, there was a great tweet, I don't know, a while ago, some girl's like, can we agree that Blump is a better name than blimp? Because it's kind of like, and I don't know, she has a point. So it starts as this thing that gets in your mind, you know, but it scales up. You know, and I think
fun.
It's fun, exactly. It's fun. And so the thing is like, then I started looking into it, we started riffing on it, blah, blah, blah. I started looking up that there's actually lots of for real blimp startups, building new blimps. Everyone in this room is welcome to an event on the 31st at Sov House. The editor of the Airship Journal is coming, Alan Shrimpton. I say Sir Alan Shrimpton, he's British, I just say Sir, I don't know. To talk to us about some of the new developments, but it's like we hooked in. Does that make sense? And so now we're in a situation where I'm like, okay, what we're gonna do, someone's like, what's BlimpDAO? I'll tell you. It's like we're going to cultivate, as I said before, maintain, and grow a narrative. Then we're gonna partner with some of these regional blimp liners, and we're gonna, you know, maybe you'll see a BlimpDAO, one of these on the side of a blimp in the Mediterranean, right? And then we're gonna take that expertise and we're gonna make our own blimp liner in Central America. We know a few people in El Salvador. And then we're gonna have a floating city over the Darien Gap. I'm like, next question, next slide, you know? And that's like as scaling up as you can get, you know? A shitpost all the way to an industrial product, you know, flying through the sky. I don't know how much more scale you can get from that, you know? And that's the thing, I think, like what you said about EMCs is, and I think what Urbit groups are good for, an Urbit is not just an account, it is an entire computer, which means this little thing that you're chatting on, that you're shitposting on, can become more and more and more, and can run the mech suit, can run the blimp, can do whatever. Yes. Turn his mic on. He's got a problem.
This is more of a comment than a question. Can you make it long? Can you make it long? Listen, I don't have time for you. It's my understanding that there's a secret history of the 20th century with a cartel that has technology that they're not giving us, and that the gods, God, whatever, is fucking unhappy with them, and is using BlimpDAO to leak etheric technology back to the people through the channel of BlimpDAO.
I didn't say what we did on that volcano, you know.
I'm not here for your fucking opinion.
He is right, and I usually do this more as kind of like the closing. There's a whole dance and a routine. It's like a magic trick. Anyway, but it is true that in the Kalachakra Tantra, written around 1100, but really passed down, Buddha promulgated it about I think 2500 BC. There is a prophecy that the forces of Shambhala will return to Earth to vanquish darkness in flying ships. And there's a lot of people that have thought UFOs, planes. Come on. What? What? Boo! Can I get a boo? Boo! Boo planes. Ban planes.
Oh, yes.
And
That's
so, flying ships, airships,
Yeah.
BlimpDAO. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what this is all doing is it's
Tell me
giving
what it's-
people. Okay. What this is all doing, it's a very easy thing. No, but it's effectively we are imagining a new future, and because we have this, highly connected world, we can now leverage that to bootstrap it into existence in all these different ways. So Urbit, we can, totally decentralize and build a sovereign internet, right?
Yeah.
We can, bring down the horrific airport experiences and replace that with leisure DAO or leisure blimps.
Leisure DAO is actually the
Leisure DAOs too,
forthcoming.
yes.
It's kind of like my thing.
I had that wine last night, I believe. But yeah, it's like this idea that once you hit that resonance, once you hit the meme, it just catches like wildfire. And if you're targeted in that, and if it could be harnessed around something like, blimps, Urbit, or health, or anything else that we've talked about at the conference, we can actually,
Blimps.
but just blimps, probably. But we can actually do a lot to change the world.
Absolutely.
Just by shitposting, and that to me is the most exciting
Never
part of the whole
stop
thing.
shitposting. Remember,
Because
like me, you can be up here on stage. Everyone in here can be blimped out. Absolutely.
so it's like everyone should just shitpost more.
Absolutely. And so, but I think the technical question, like the Urbit, and this is an Urbit event, I'm talking about Urbit, is the question that it comes back to is actually, how do you make a stack, it's a term, it's a technical term, that is ideal for going from shitpost to Gundam suit? It's like, how do you do that? And what's the best way? And I think actually one of the things that, and one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is just that Urbit has struggled with, and I think is the problem, is the membrane between the Urbit crew, literally on your Urbit, and the outside world, right? Because you're trying to win converts to the blimp cause. Mm-hmm. And if you're just kind of in your hermetically sealed group, how does anyone know how rad you are? It's hard to say, And so a lot of the stuff that I think that you're working on now with Realm and stuff like that is actually, at least takes that problem on.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what the talk was yesterday, was how do you harness this in a way that, is less chaotic than just a wildfire spreading, right?
Yeah.
And really our thinking behind that is that you effectively treat an NFT as a membership into this new world, right? Whether the new world is blimps, it's, revitalizing the internet, if it's the network state, whatever the case is, you have a Schelling point, right? Where the community can amass. And in our case, it has to be decentralized, right? Because if, BlimpDAO, takes off and reaches the sky,
the pun? Yeah.
What's going to happen is, Twitter, Facebook, they're going to get calls, calls from Delta Airlines
Shut
CEO, shut BlimpDAO down.
It's already
kill
happening.
these blimps.
It's already happening. Yeah.
And then it's over. If the distribution gets cut off, then the memes can't flow, and we have to have the free flow of memes. And the thing is
You can't have the enemy in control of the
Yeah.
memes of production. Oh, sorry.
yeah, exactly.
Someone else must have said that. I wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't even hard.
But it's you have to take that technical technology is a weapon, right?
Yeah.
And I was going to use this phrase at the beginning of the talk yesterday to say Urbit is a weapon, but it's not a weapon in that you're pointing at people. It's a weapon because it's a path to liberation. It's a path to being free, to let the memes flow, to let the blimps fly,
Exactly.
and to let the internet be shitposting.
That's beautiful, and I just want to say one thing before we leave. BlimpDAO. Thank you.
BlimpDAO.
She won for that. There you go.